Okay, it's Sunday, which means against my better judgment it's time to go to Reddit and see what we can find in this hive of scum and villainy. First off, I think the meta of lower elos revolves too strongly around a hero's ability to 1v1 someone rather than to be an effective team member. I mean, yeah, but what can you do, you know? The last to hero based complaints that really shows that the vast majority of plat and below players, Wait, am I having a stroke? The last two hero-based complaints really shows that the vast majority of plat and below players, the majority, have difficulty 1v1ing certain heroes, and 1v1ing heroes that it actually ends up being what a large portion of matches revolve around. I feel like that stops being the case sort of around mid-goldish, the too many 1v1s complaints. The issue, I think, that you start having, like, mid-gold and above, up until probably, like, diamond, but maybe even, like, halfway up diamond. The issue tends to be more that, like, people know they need to play like a team, but they don't know how yet. So, it tends to lead to just a lot of awkwardness, basically. And I mean, people are still greedy and overextend and all that all the time. That doesn't change, no matter how high you get. I feel like that specific issue stops being that big of a deal, like, by the time you get to plat. Bridge and Reaper currently excel at 1v1ing and are so deemed OP, even though in the case of Reaper, a plat level McCree can easily demolish Reaper, and a gold level one ought to be a good fair matchup. But because of the inability for Ryan and Moira to properly 1v1 Reaper, people are complaining. Why? Because teamwork is non-existent at these elos, and we are all reliant on our own ability to deal with the problem in front of us. The problem in front of us now, Reaper, is too much for me to handle alone. So, he is OP. Thoughts? Yeah, I mean, I guess. I'm gonna, like, also partly blame, like, Reddit and also just people in general, because people get told if you're in low elo, the best thing you can do is, like, insta-lock a DPS and solo carry yourself. And that breeds the wrong mentality in people, because then, if that's all they try and do, when it comes time to learn how to play with your teammates, they're not going to know how to do that, and then they have to start learning all over again. So if you do manage to, like, solo carry yourself at a very low SR, then you're going to hit a roadblock really early on, because suddenly, well, I knew how to pub stomp, but now the pubs kind of know how to play the game, and I don't know how to play with my team. So that tends to be an issue for people as well. I mean, what can you do, right? Like, people have to, like, I don't really care if people in that elo can't work as a team, because then that just basically becomes, at this elo, you need to learn how to do that before you can start to climb, sort of thing, right? Like, every elo kind of has a thing that sticks them there because they don't know how to do it properly yet, and that can just be like, I don't know how to pilot my hero yet in very low SR, like, I know how to use my hero, but I don't know how to use my ultimate yet, a little bit past that, you know, things like that. Like, if it becomes like gold level players don't know how to rely on their teammates to deal with things they can't deal with, then hey, whatever, they've got to learn how to deal with that, I guess, haven't they? Like, I don't really have a problem with that. It's just that, like, all you can really do is try and teach people, right? Like, Reinhardt can't do anything about Reaper, so you try and, like, get away from Reaper and, like, stall out and, like, really play around your teammates more so that they can, like, the people who are equipped to deal with Reaper can deal with Reaper, because you aren't equipped to deal with Reaper. That's all you can really do, isn't it? Like, it's not a problem that's easy to solve, because that's just how people are, you know? Oh, God. That's too long. Some tips and notes I made for Moira after watching a Jane VoD review. Don't waste Fade at the beginning to move faster, can be punished. True story, but I do it every time anyway, because I'm a greedy hoe. Throw damage orb into clumped enemies when off CD for ult charge, and for good chip damage. Do not do this when you have Coalescence, as it will only feed support's ultimate charge. Oh, I've been saying that forever. Good to know a smarter man than me agrees. Push aggressively and core when using Coalescence. Using Coalescence is better than only using Coalescence and helps kill finish off squishies faster. True story, one of those efficiency things that matters over the long term. Use Coalescence intuitively in the beginning of fight with 6 people alive rather than 3 people are alive and stalling a lost fight. All support ults are that way, where you want to use them on as many people as possible. The only real exception is Zenyatta, because his is not used like at the beginning of a fight. His is used to counter other ultimates, so Zenyatta doesn't really count with this, but all other supports pretty much, and Orisa, you want to use the ult as soon as possible, so as many people can benefit from your ultimate as possible. And Moira's as well, like if you use it right at the start of the fight, you can be potentially hitting 6 people on your team and 6 people on the enemy team, right? So it's better all around to use it as soon as possible. And Moira, sometimes you can coalesce twice in a fight if the fight goes on for a while. Like, it's that kind of, she's that kind of hero. Use healing orbs against walls to get more value and throw into a whole team rather than one teammate that is out of position to heal them. Waste of orb as it gives no value afterwards. Sometimes you still do want to do that though, because if you... Sometimes you want to try and keep the guy alive, but it's too dangerous or the guy's too far away for you to get to them, in which case you can just try and use the healing orb to keep that person alive. Yeah, it doesn't get super value out of the orb, and you probably won't get the full healing out of it, but if you keep the guy alive without exposing yourself to risk, in my opinion, that's worth it. And, like, I ain't going all... Like, if there's 2 fights... If there's, like, a fight happening and there's, like, 3 people between me and the guy that's having the fight, like, I'm not gonna go over there. I'm not gonna push through those 3 people to try and heal the guy. I'll just throw the healing orb instead. You don't use right-click on shields unless another teammate is helping. Break that shield as well. Right-clicks 50 DPS and takes an eternity to break shields. If there's just nothing better for you to be doing with your time, though, still do it. Like, don't just do it if other people are helping you. Sometimes there's just literally nothing else you can be doing with your time, so you might as well be doing chip damage to the shield, because the alternative is just, like, standing around with your thumb up your ass, right? Like, if there's nothing better to do, just do it anyway. Pulsating heals, hold, let go, rather than long heals, as they are more effective for healing your tanks back up when they are not taking damage after winning a team fight. Don't bother with healing smaller targets like Genji Reaper if they've taken a bit of damage. Let other healers deal with it. Focus on healing big tanks. Just put the regen on them. You can't trust other people. Like, if you could rely on the other healer, that'd be great, but we can't always do that. So just, if they've taken a bit of damage, just put the regen on them. Hold for half a second, because then you'll heal up the chip damage without dedicating your attention to them. Because in a perfect world, yes, we'd be able to rely on, like, the Lucio to heal them. But, tragically, we do not live in a perfect world, as we are often reminded. So still, just use the regen rather than, like, holding on them. Unless the guy looks like he's gonna die. When fading to escape damage, Hanzo ultimate, fade with team to be in healing distance of them after the ultimate if they took damage, rather than away from them. I mean, it's not just kind of that thing. You just want to think about where you're going to fade when you push the button, because you don't want to fade away from your team in general most of the time. There's some very specific situations, which is basically like, they might get gravitoned in the next couple seconds, and I don't want to be there. So I'll fade, I'll fade, but stay a little bit away from them, so I don't get caught in it. But you basically want to fade with your team anyway, just regardless of that, but, you know, true with something like a Hanzo ultimate also. Know which orb you're going to fire to save time and reduce CD. If holding right-click, pressing orb while still holding right-click will release damage orb instantly. Same goes for left-click, yes. Though if you're doing that with the left-click, you might accidentally waste some resource at the same time. Top 500 tank main player opinion guide on the new Reaper buffs. Shit. Oh god. TLDR? No. Oh wait, yes. Conclusion is, yes, tanking one-on-ones with Reaper's tank is most times out of 10 going to result in you dying. With this buff, he has become a hard counter in that situation with the wriggle room to outplay the Reaper. However, I do still think, due to him having a large hitbox, being weak when focused fired, CC'd, cannot impact the game when team positions correctly and other reasons. He is a mediocre pick at best, and I believe that it is a knee-jerk reaction to the buff change, when he is easily countered with the right course of action has taken place, and main tank can still be enjoyed and you can still frag out also even with a Reaper on the enemy team. Here's the thing, though. A lot of people are currently complaining about Reaper, so it'll probably just get nerfed anyway. Blizzard's this way, where they'll listen to the majority opinion. Well, not even necessarily the majority. They'll listen to the loudest opinion out there. Just look at Bridget. They're still nerfing her. To this day, they're still nerfing Bridget. So, they'll nerf Reaper, probably, if people keep complaining. Don't worry about it. I've been in gold for 11 seasons. Please help me. Oh, it's video. Oh, I'm not doing that right now. As Reinhardt versus Reinhardt, should I bother dropping shield to let the Fire Strike go by? Fire Strike both damages and goes through shield, therefore it seems like not a bad idea to drop shield in order to let it go by without taking the extra damage. But I'm worried this might secretly be a bad habit to learn, assuming I'm not holding shield for no reason. Dropping shield for even the smallest time. Yeah, like, I'll usually do it because 100 damage is nothing to sneeze at. Like, that's 5% of your shield, which doesn't necessarily sound like a lot, but is a lot, actually. So I'll usually do it, but it is something that you can get punished for, so you need to be careful if you're going to drop your shield to let the Fire Strike go by. Basically, it's very hard to get punished for, by an Earth Shatter or something like that by doing that. The Reinhardt basically has to guess that you're going to do it, because you literally just take the shield down for half a second, so he has to have fucked up but gotten rewarded anyway, or just guessed correctly, which would be hard for him to do. Not impossible, but you know, you're unlikely to get punished for an Earth Shatter. But yeah, if there's like a sniper, a Roadhog, something like that, you can get punished for it, but the chances of it are fairly low. The thing that's most likely to punish you is a Widowmaker, because advice to give a Widowmaker playing against a Reinhardt is aim as if the shield isn't there, which is basically if somebody's standing behind the shield and you're trying to get them anyway, just hover over their head regardless, and then as soon as they take the shield down, you can shoot the guy, because they'll think they're safe and then they're not. So that's the most likely thing to punish you, so, you know, be careful, you can get punished for it, but I will usually take the shield down for half a second to let the Fire Strike go by, because it preserves the shield. And like 100 damage when you're talking about Reinhardt's shield is nothing to sneeze at. Let's see, dealing with Mei as Reinhardt, so I've just hit Diamond and I play pretty much only Reinhardt. All of a sudden, Mei seems to be in every team comp and she's causing me a lot of trouble. How do I avoid being walled off from my team? I've tried pushing areas without a choke, but it's not possible on every map. I try to bait a badly placed wall by walking forward and backwards. This is easier if we have a Lucio. Are there any other tricks to avoiding her walls? That's pretty much it. Like, you can basically bait it out, or, like, your options are pretty much bait it out, or get your whole team to go in together. And that's pretty much it. Like, there's not a lot else you can really do. You can try and circumnavigate the problem if possible, but yep, not every map permits that, particularly maps like Hanamura, which is where you're most likely to run into this problem. Your choices are bait the wall and go in all together, and that's basically it. Or, you know, if you've got, you know, it's gonna be get pretty specific, but like if you got like a Pharah, she might be able to peek over the top and kill the Mei, so you could like wait for the Mei to get picked off and then go in, but that's like not super likely. So those are pretty much your options as Reinhardt. And I mean, it sucks, right? Like, it sucks that your options are kind of just hope Mei is bad, or hope your team works together. But it's one of those things where, like, Reinhardt doesn't have a whole lot of options against that, so those are basically it. If you do get walled off, like, depending on the situation, it is usually kind of easy to pin Mei against her own wall, because the hitbox on the wall is, like, really fucking weird. So, even if, like, you charge along the same angle as the wall, right, like, perpendicular to it, then you'll still usually end up pinning Mei against her own wall, because the hitbox is really janky, so sometimes that works out, but yeah, it's kind of one of those crapshoots where Reinhardt doesn't have a very good option for that situation. Sometimes the best option might be change to a different tank, like change to a more dive tank like Winston instead, and then it's not an issue for you, basically. What's happening with the World Cup viewer? I found to be extremely educational, focusing on the viewpoints I hear of heroes I play. Helped me learn tips and tricks of the pros. I've been hoping that the WCV was going to be repurposed into Overwatch Live Viewer with this season, and worried that the World Cup viewer is being abandoned. I I thought that was gonna be just a standard feature, but I don't know. I don't really follow the Overwatch pro-ness very much, so I don't know. Reaction times needed to be a pro. Do reaction times even matter? It seems like everyone says that X-Pro had to retire because he turned 30 and now he's too slow to keep up. Well, wouldn't that imply that there is some kind of reaction time threshold needed to play each role? If so, what times are needed for each role? How does reaction time even factor into becoming a pro? Nah, it's basically all bullshit. Like, one of the best Street Fighter players in the world right now is in his 30s, and fighting games are the ones that require the most reaction time. Like, people don't retire out of the military because as soon as they go from 29 to 30, you know? Like, what usually happens is that they're tired of the game, or, like, the person is having trouble justifying a fairly risky career path like that to themselves. It's just very easy to go, oh, well, their reaction time's too bad, so they can't keep up. No, that's, like, foolishness. There's a physical component, no doubt. Your reaction time does get slower as time goes by, sure enough, but, like, it's not like suddenly you reach some magic threshold and you're too slow, you can't do it. Especially when, like, honestly, a lot of the time reaction time can be substituted for predictions, so... And that's not really a young person-specific skill, is it? So, no, like, it's the easy answer, but I think the actual reason most people retire by the time they get to their 30s is more grounded, like, just, maybe I want a more stable career path, you know? Maybe I'm tired of playing this game for, like, 12 hours every day, and I'd rather just have a life outside of that, you know? I don't think it's really a reaction time thing. Especially when you, like, look at all these, like, there are pros out there that are older, and they still do fine, right? Like, yeah, they might not be the greatest in the world, but it's not as big of a thing as people make it out to be. How does one predict Grav and Nade as Diva? How can I get better at predicting these two things? What are some tells I can look for to make predicting these things easier? So Zarya is gonna start playing more aggressively, generally speaking, because they're trying to get into a good position to use Graviton. So if the Zarya suddenly is playing more aggressively than they were previously, they're probably looking to use Graviton. Being able to track ults decently well will also help you with this, because then you'll know roughly when she's got her ultimate, so you can sort of line up with her behavior with that time, right? One of the easiest tells is if she's running forward while reloading, because, like, 100%, if she's reloading but still running forward towards you, the Zarya wants to use Graviton. Because that's the whole idea. Reload, use Graviton, right-click, 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 right? So if she's, like, running forward while reloading, get ready, here it comes. She might be bad, but we should, and just be, like, positioning badly, but we should assume the enemy team is going to play well until we've seen otherwise. So if she's running forward at you while reloading, she's gonna grab. Basically watch for her playing more aggressively. That'll be the biggest tell. If she suddenly starts, like, if she was sitting behind Reinhardt's shield this whole time, but suddenly she's running towards your team, she's probably gonna use Graviton. If she's trying to, like, physically push her way past you, and you're playing, like, Diva, she wants to use Graviton. That's basically gonna be the easiest tells you can find. You're basically looking for more aggressive behavior. With Ana, it's going to be more difficult to tell that one, because Ana's going to use grenades at a variety of different times, right? If you're jumping on her and you're going in on her using your missiles, flying at her and all that, she's usually going to wait until she's taken a little bit of damage and then throw it at her feet. So basically, like, half a second after you've arrived, you'll want to be ready for it then. Other than that, like, she'll use it at like, if you see her, like, walking off to the side suddenly, then she's probably going to use a grenade, because she's looking for an angle to, like, get it into the middle of the team rather than just hitting the front of the team. So if you see her suddenly just, like, drift off to one side of the team, she's probably looking to use the grenade aggressively. Other than that, it's going to mostly come down to, like, reading and reacting to her. Like, Ana uses Grenade for so many different reasons that it's hard to give you, like, a set guideline for that one, other than if she suddenly drifts off to the side. If she starts running forward, then she's probably going to use it, but I assume that one's fairly obvious, honestly. Yeah, that's basically the best I got for you. The Zarya's playing more aggressively, and if she's running forward while reloading, she's gonna do it. Could Overwatch be comparable to hockey? I'm a big hockey fan, and late one night I thought maybe Overwatch could be like a hockey game. It's 6v6, especially when you have a point you are defending. In hockey, you have 3 attackers to defend. This is too much. I'm not a sports guy. I don't know anything about those sports balls. What is a good way to play Sombra more aggressively? I'm currently sitting at high gold. The only problem is when I play her, I tend to go for a more defensive strategy, utilizing hack more often. I'm playing behind the enemy team to try and get pick on squishies and build ult charge, but a lot of the time I feel that playing that way is just too passive. It doesn't contribute a lot. Is there a way I can change my playstyle to become more aggressive and valuable as Sombra, especially in lower tier games? I mean, the whole point of Sombra is to build your ult as quickly as possible, because the Emp is very, very strong. So, like, honestly, so this is gonna sound kind of weird. The best way to play Sombra more aggressively is gonna probably be to Emp more often, honestly. And I don't mean, like, try and charge Emp faster. Obviously, that's the ideal, is you charge Emp as quickly as possible. But I do literally just mean using it faster once you've built it up, trying to Emp more frequently in the game by using it as quickly as possible. Now, you still want to use it in a good time, obviously. It's one of those ults that requires a degree of timing, so you can't just use it whenever and expect to get good results. But people who play Sombra have a tendency to wait for, like, the perfect 6-man Zarya combo ultimate kind of situation, right? Whereas a lot of the time, if you just Emp their front line, that'll do it. Sometimes if you just Emp Zenyatta and stop him using Transcendence, that's good enough. Sometimes if you just Emp Zarya and kill her before she can use Graviton, that's good enough. Like, you don't need to hit the entire enemy team with it and, like, get these sick combos in, which, you know, you like to. You know, if you have a really sick combo and you've got Emp and somebody is, like, right at having their ultimate and you'd like to combo them, alright, try and coordinate that. Good times if you can, right? But don't feel like that's the only way you have to use it. Sometimes you just, like, walk up behind your Reinhardt, Emp both their tanks and one of their DPS. That should be good enough, honestly, especially if they had, like, a Reinhardt, you emped the Reinhardt, and suddenly you all just run forward, and there's nothing they can do to stop you, right? Like, sometimes that's all it takes. It doesn't need to be a fantastic ult every time, because just, like, 2 or 3 members of their team unable to use their abilities, particularly their ultimates, if they're really high-impact ultimates, like Transcendence, Earth Shatter, Graviton, suddenly, sometimes just break the barrier as well, right? Like, the Reinhardt is just gone, right? You Emp Orisa and break her barrier, everybody runs forward, you know, stuff like that is strong in and of itself. So, honestly, the good way to play a Sombra is probably just Emp as much as you possibly can. Like, you know, don't just use it whenever the fuck. You know, you still need your team to be in position and all that still. That all still applies, but yeah, I find Sombra players can sit on their ultimates for too long as well, waiting for the perfect time to strike, which, hey, it might come eventually, but it might not. But if I just Emp these 3 boys right now and kill one of them, that should be good enough, honestly. Other than that, like, you know, you can try and use Translocator aggressively to reposition faster, to get, like, get up on high ground, harass people, all that, you know, but, like, pretty much, like, you're just trying to farm your ult as quickly as possible and then use it, and if you can get a pick on somebody at the great time, awesome, fantastic, by all means, go for it. But, like, in terms of ability to pick somebody off, Sombra isn't as good as someone like Tracer or Genji is at doing that, right? Or, like, even Pharah, right? Those people are better at getting picks than Sombra is, but Sombra has a massively more useful ultimate. Like, Sombra's ultimate is disgustingly strong if used correctly. It's big variance, because it's either the strongest ult in the game or the weakest ult in the game, depending on how used, right? But that's your goal. Harass people, build ult as quickly as possible, and then use it. Get picks if you can. Obviously, every hero is looking to get a pick if they can, right? So, by all means. But really, you're looking to Emp. That's Sombra's playstyle right there. So, it's just really Emp more. Which, you know, kind of sounds like aim better, but I think you get the idea. Noob question, but important question because I have not found it in any videos or articles. How one check the freaking opponent's team composition in-game on the PC, but I can't find the... I tried all keys without control and have not found it. It's tab. Hold tab. Can't stick to one hero. I understand that I need to concentrate on a selected few heroes so that I can actually become better. You can't flex to your top, you know? But I just can't. I love Widow and Genji, but I always feel like I have to fill. Is this normal? Am I stupid? Is this real life? Or is it just fantasy? I mean, if you, like, you know, sometimes you have to fill, sure, but, like, just try and fill on the same heroes if you can. Like, pick 1 or 2 heroes out of each category and focus on those heroes so that if you get filled into one of those categories, you're still improving on, like, a specific hero, right, rather than spreading yourself out over all those heroes still, so just try and fill into the same heroes if you can. Sometimes you'll have to, yeah, but still just try and focus on a few even when you're doing that. Coping with Reaper, let's count the ways. Oh, look at look at all these things people can in fact do to not die to Reaper. It's incredible, isn't it? How long it takes to walk from spawn on assault maps? Let's see, attack to point A. Average, so the longest one's Horizon. Yep, that makes sense. Okay. Paris is pretty big then, if it competes with the Horizon. I haven't really looked at the very new map much. Attack to B. Same as Volskaya. Volskaya is really fucking long to walk back to attack the attackers to get back, isn't it? That's true. Defense to A. Really, I would have thought Anubis was longer than that, actually. I like the consistency, though. Everywhere except Anubis and Paris is the same time to get back. I assume this is Anna. Yeah, so no mobility assumed. Defense to B, tense. So Paris is slightly bigger than the other 2 CP maps. But, like... So defense to A is 2 seconds longer, and defense to B is the same as Volskaya. Average 9 seconds, 26. So, it's not that much... 2 seconds is kind of a big deal, but not really at the same time. I'm mostly surprised that Anubis is that short. I would have thought it was way longer than that. How about that? I do find this kind of information interesting. I remember seeing this really big spreadsheet that was every map in the game, assuming you're just walking back. And the longest point was, I think it was tied. It was very close between King's Row point B for defense and Numbani point B for defense. They were both something like 35 seconds, assuming no mobility to get back to the objective. So, the front of the, you know, the beginning of the objective. But I mean, those points are very hard to defend, so no surprises there, frankly. When to play Lucio. When is the best time to pick Lucio versus Zen? But I don't know when to pick him or when to pick Zembrig. So I find Lucio is much more specific in how useful he is. Zenyatta just tends to fit in to pretty much any team composition because Discord and Transcendence are really good. Like, his utility is universally applicable, basically. Bridget, you know, people pretty much know when to pick her versus divers and flankers. Lucio, pretty, like, it's like, if your team is really aggressive, like you got a dive comp, then Lucio will be good, but at the same time, Zenyatta will also be good, so it pretty much depends on how you want to look at it in that situation, because they both will help with an aggressive dive comp, or just an aggressive comp, both in different ways, because Discord's really good, and his long-range healing that goes around corners. and Lucio has the speed boost, so there's that. You also can get, like, a way sicker engage with sound barrier, because, you know, sound barrier is good for that. So there's, like, aggressive team comps. If the enemy team has a Lucio, you might be more tempted to pick a Lucio in response, because that means the enemy team can position very quickly, so it might be important for your team to be able to react quickly, because if they speed boost in, you might want to be able to speed boost away from them, right? So they might want to do it then. If the enemy team... If they have, like, a Zarya combo, but the combo is, like, Tracer or McCree, then Zenyatta is really good against Graviton, but he doesn't help you if you get one shot, right? Which Pulse Bomb and High Noon will do. Sound Barrier can actually save you from Pulse Bomb and Deadeye, whereas Transcendence can't. So, if the enemy team comp is like Zarya, Tracer McCree, Tracer Widowmaker, something like that, right? You might want to pick Lucio because Sound Barrier in that situation could be a better defensive ultimate than Transcendence is. Just because Transcendence doesn't save you from getting one shot, whereas Sound Barrier can save you from getting one shot. So that's pretty much it. I find Lucio's utility is much more specific. If you've got a coordinated team, Lucio's more helpful also, because the speed boost benefits more from coordination, so your whole team can use it because everybody's on the same page, you know? So, basically, like, if you're ever in doubt, Zenyatta pretty much will always be okay, basically, because his utility is so universal. But Lucio is more for, like, those kinds of situations. I find he is much more limited in his use. He is also better at, like, he's better appealing than Zenyatta is also, so there's that to bear in mind. But if you're picking a hero to peel for other people, you're probably better off picking Bridget. So, you know, he can peel also, so maybe weigh that in. But you'll probably want to pick Bridget if you're picking somebody to peel. In the off-support position, anyway. Well, you know, maybe in general also. Climbing with Ana in low ranks. So I'm fairly new in the game, and Ana is one of the only characters I feel like I enjoy playing. My question is it possible to climb as an Ana in low ranks? I've been told by people that it simply isn't, because she needs people on her team that knows what they're doing. What do you guys say? No, I think Ana's one of the better ones. I always recommend people pick Moira in low ranks, just because Moira is very easy to play. Ana's kind of difficult to play, which factors into what I say for lower elos. But Ana's really good. Like, Ana can exert a lot of control over the game. People are saying that because Nano Boost requires other people to do stuff, but, like, when you're picking somebody to Nano Boost, you're picking somebody who is gonna do damage basically regardless. Like, we Nano Boost Genji because it's really hard to fuck up Nano Blade, right? I Nano Boost Reinhardt because it's really hard to fuck up swinging the hammer, you know? But you can also just Nano Boost to save people, which you're likely to have to do in lower ranks anyway, and that's no big deal. Ana has a lot of control over the game if you know how to play her. Like, the Sleep Dart is really good for controlling people, the Bio Grenade is really good for keeping your team alive and stopping the enemy team from being alive, and she gets to do a pretty respectable amount of damage. She can kill a Pharah very quickly, for example, and Pharah is something that people, especially in lower ranks, really struggle to deal with. So if you're playing Ana and you know how to play Ana well, then you can, like, control the game really well. So, like, yeah, it's definitely possible. It's just Ana is probably the hardest support to play. Definitely one of the hardest. You can argue between a couple, but, like, Ana is undeniably one of the hardest supports to play. So, like, it's difficult just because of the skill requirement, but, like, you can definitely carry a game as Ana in lower ranks, because she has so much control herself over what happens. Yeah, Nano Boost requires other people, but, like, that's kinda it. She's nowhere near as dependent on her teammates as, like, Mercy is, because Mercy's the most dependent of her teammates out of everybody, right? So, like, you can definitely do it as Ana, it's just Ana's hard. Why is Mei rarely picked? She has a stigma attached to her. Why isn't Mei used more? Until Grandmasters, where she is usually up. What's wrong with her? There's nothing really wrong with her. Like, she can get countered by specific things like Pharah pretty badly, but, like, There's nothing, even then, after the buff to her right click, right? Not so much. So there's nothing wrong with Mei. She's one of those heroes that has a stigma attached to her, and it's just very hard to get past that. Like, she's one of those heroes where people might throw on your team just because you picked the hero. So, like, she's also just not very flashy, right? Like, there's that as well. So there's, like, the stigma, but she's also just not a very flashy hero to play. People like the flashy heroes, right? Because, like, video games are about fulfilling a fantasy, right? There are a lot of people who have a fantasy about being a cyborg ninja. There are a lot of people who have a fantasy about being an ace sniper. There are not so many people that have a fantasy about being a podgy Iceman, right? Like, that just doesn't appeal to people in quite the same way. So there's that also, but like there's nothing really wrong with Mei, and in certain situations she really fucks the enemy team up. Like certain maps like Hanamura, Mei is disgustingly strong on. Against certain kinds of heroes, Mei is very strong because she just bullies them around basically, and there's nothing they can do to her. Like Hammond, Mei can bully the fuck out of a Hammond, right? Like she might not ever kill the Hammond, but God will that Hammond be unhappy, right? So there's nothing wrong with Mei, really. She just has a stigma attached to her, and she's just not as popular, just like, in terms of aesthetic and playstyle as other heroes are. Good bubbling enough to climb a Zarya. My aim is subpar, but I think I'm pretty good at bubble management. At my rank, is that alone enough to create value? Or should I hang her up until my mechanical skills improve? Average charge is 32%. That's, I guess I don't really know that much. That seems fairly low for an average charge. I mean, using your bubbles well is most of Zarya, to be honest with you. Especially because a lot of times you can just right-click somebody to death, honestly. Like, yeah, you know, if you've got good tracking so you can use the laser, that's definitely helpful. Like, then that Genji jumps on you, if you just kill that fly immediately, like, that's great. But, like, a lot of times you can right-click people to death, and then, like, you can left-click a tank pretty easily, so, like, bubble management is most of Zarya, right? Like, a lot of Zarya is using your bubbles well, and then, like, using Graviton well, obviously. So, yeah, good bubbling is probably enough to climb by itself up to a point. I don't know exactly what that point would be, that it would stop being enough, but it is probably enough to climb for a while, just because if you're consistently very high charge, then that should be good enough for most situations, because Zarya high charge is just extremely scary. You right-click somebody a couple times, they're done. They're done. Anyone that could provide some Lucio tips to a complete Lucio noob. Speed boost as much as possible. When you're picking an off support, you're not picking them for their ability to heal, you're picking them for the utility they provide. Because if you were picking them for healing ability, you'd just pick another main healer, right? None of the off healers compete. So you're picking them for their utility, so you're trying to leverage the utility as much as possible. Lucio's utility is the speed boost, so you want to be speed boosting as much as possible. You want to have a reason to change to the healing aura, not vice versa, right? Try to wall ride as much as possible. You want to, like, take advantage of your hero's mobility as much as you can. Because, like, if you watch a Lucio just walking around on the ground constantly, like, that's just kind of sad, because it's like, you're not really playing Lucio, right? You want to play Lucio, so you want to try and use his mobility as much as you can, right? Don't boop people randomly, because booping people randomly often ends up being detrimental to your own team. Because, like, a lot of Lucio players will just, like, walk up to somebody, like, left-click, punch, boop them. But, like, the boop doesn't add much damage, so if you don't know it's gonna kill them, you shouldn't do it. Because if, like, imagine just, like, soldiers lining up Helix Rocket over there and you boop him, suddenly you save that guy. You did, like, 25 damage, but you stopped him from taking, like, 120, right? So, like, that's bad math. So don't just boop people randomly. Also, be careful when you boop, like, Reinhardt charging at you, because Lucio players love to do that. They love to boop the charging Reinhardt. So then suddenly he's 5 feet to the right and pins Mercy, and she's upset about it, right? So yeah, speed boost as much as possible, wall ride as much as possible, don't boop people randomly. You're booping to, like, peel for people, You can, like, boop to push people out of position, but be careful, like, know why you're doing that still, so you don't fuck up your DPS and things like that. Or, like, if, like, Genji's deflecting in front of you and you booping through the deflect will kill him, you know? Great stuff, right? So, like, those are the things I can think of off the top of my head for, like, a complete noob. How do I deal with twitchy aim? I have alright aim and mare tracking when playing calmly. High pressure situations where my performance... So you panic under stress. Painfully, adrenaline, I'm sure, but what can be done about it? So I play at 8.7. That's still mine's at like 4.7, so still way higher than mine, but still whatever. You know, like, how do I not panic is kind of a difficult question to answer, really, isn't it? So, like, a lot of it comes with just being more if you're in that situation enough times, eventually it stops being such an issue for you, right? You just kind of get used to the situation. Because this is a problem I've dealt with in, like, a lot of games I've played. I feel like I talk about this every week, but, like, if there's a question about it every week, you know, I feel like I gotta answer it every week. Even though I basically say the same thing. This is like a problem I've had in a lot of games where I would panic under these situations as well. And this is something I had to deal with in League of Legends, Overwatch, TF2. I played that like 1,000 years ago. I had to deal with that too. So TF2, League of Legends, Overwatch, and more recently, Dragon Ball Fighters as well. Because, oh, Jesus, I'm in the corner. Oh, God, no. Cell's got me in the corner. Please, no, stop. Let me out. Oh, God, I don't like this. Whereas now, it's more sullen resignation. Like, after 5,000 games, I'm just like, alright, Cell's got me in the corner. Oh, yep, I wasn't blocking low, and he clipped my feet, and now there goes half my health. Alright, that's fine. You know, not so much panic anymore, just, like, dull resignation, right? Yep, I guess this is going to be the next 30 seconds of my life. So, like, a matter of it's just experience where you get less panicked the more times you're in that situation. Other than that, all you can really do is, like, be really cognizant of yourself, and when you catch yourself starting to panic, just, like, you know, all that hippie shit, basically. Take a deep breath and center yourself, you know? Like, there's that. But more realistically... just every time you catch yourself panicking, just chastise yourself for it, right? Because, like, our stupid monkey brains are this way, where you basically have to tell yourself off for something a lot of times before it actually sticks. So if you're just, like, really aware of it, just, like, every time you find yourself panicking, if you just kind of, like, chastise yourself for it, eventually it'll stick. Because our stupid monkey brains are that way, but a lot of it will honestly come with just experience, right? Once you're in that situation enough times, eventually you learn how to deal with it. And how you deal with it will probably be slightly different to how everybody else deals with it at the same time. Because I'll still find myself panicking in some situations. This is going to sound really fucking stupid, but I always think of that, whenever I find myself panicking, I always think of that scene in A New Hope where... Luke's, you know, the Death Star run, and Yoda's like, use the Force, Luke, and he takes the targeting computer off. It's gonna sound really stupid. I always think of that scene. And for that helps me calm down, basically, if I find myself panicking in a situation. I don't know why, it just does. So, you know, whatever works for you, works for you. For some reason, that works for me, thinking of, like, that scene. So whatever works for you. But a lot of it will come with experience, basically. You know, it's one of those things, right? Everybody deals with, like, panic and stress differently, so you kind of have to find your way to deal with it. What is a good DPI and sense for Genji? Whatever feels good. Does it feel good? Great. If it doesn't feel good, adjust. However which way you feel it doesn't feel good. Does it feel too slow? Does it feel too fast? Adjust accordingly. Does it feel right? Great. Good stuff. One trick pony versus one role versus all heroes. How can I climb the fastest in competitive? Just playing the same character or just playing one or two roles? Just strictly speaking, if you're really good, like, really good at one hero, that's going to be your fastest way to climb. Especially if it's a hero like, Widowmaker, right? Someone who has, like, very good hard carry potential. Personally, I only ever played a couple of heroes. I would play a lot of Reinhardt. This is, you know, still how I am, basically. I'm, like, really good at Reinhardt, really good at Moira, really good at Bridget. So I'll just try and pick one of those heroes if possible. And then, like, I know how to play other heroes decently well. Like, if I had to play an off-tank, like, I know how to play D.Va, right? I know how to play all the tanks, basically. But, like, I know how to play D.Va, right? So I can pick her if I have to be an off-tank. If I have to pick a DPS, well, now I'm trying to get good at Ashe, but, you know. I could pick McCree, I could pick Soldier, or I could even pick Genji, honestly, right? So, like, try and focus on a few heroes. I find that's going to be your most consistent results, but, like, if you're really good at one hero, that'll actually be your fastest returns. How to learn Genji when people say not to play Genji. People always tell me not to play Genji since he's the toughest hero to play. Lies. Genji's actually quite easy. Well, how else am I supposed to learn him? Isn't playing him the best way to do this? It is. And I encourage you, like, even if you're a new player, if you just bought the game today, right? You're like, I'm gonna put the disc in because I live in the fucking 90s, right? I'm gonna play Overwatch today. Even if you want to play Widowmaker and you've never played a game before, fucking play Widowmaker. You do it. You follow your dreams. You learn how to play that hero you want to play, and don't care what other people say. You want to learn how to play that hero, you damn well learn how to play that hero. Don't listen to them. Genji is actually, like, not as difficult to play as people say he is. Like, yeah, he has a mechanical requirement, he's a projectile hero, so there's all that, but, like, the parts of Genji that are the strongest are actually quite easy to do mechanically. It's mostly about learning when to do them. But, like, you need to learn that with every hero, right? Like, Reinhardt is an extremely easy hero to play mechanically. But I would actually rate him as one of the most difficult heroes to learn how to play, because it's not necessarily obvious what you have to do to learn, right? Like, with Genji, it's pretty obvious. You dash in and you die, and you say to yourself, alright, so did I pick a bad time to dash in which case I need to find a better time to dash in, or did I find a good time to dash in and die? And so, therefore, I need to execute better when I do that. What could I have done after I dashed in to do better, right? And it might just be aim better, you know, but, like, it's a fairly easy troubleshooting process, right? Whereas Reinhardt, it's not necessarily obvious why you fucked up, right? Because it might be your shield broke, right? Your shield was kind of low right here, so if I was more efficient in the preceding, like, 30 seconds up to this point, my shield would have been in a better position right now, right? But then you even need to think, well, when could I have taken my shield down? When could I have taken it down? Was I not blocking for somebody? Was I blocking for nobody when I could have just taken it down? Was I just blocking chip damage when I could have been letting it regenerate, you know? There's more steps you have to go through to identify that, and, like, if you fuck up on Reinhardt, the punishment is your whole team dies, right? Whereas if you fuck up as Genji, your punishment is you die. So, honestly, I think Genji is probably easier to learn overall than someone like Reinhardt or Zarya, just because it's a more direct troubleshooting period, basically. But, like, honestly, I can play Genji, and I'm not a very good player mechanically, because, like, it's mostly about picking your time to go in, and, like, other than that, kind of just, like, because you can play Genji kind of like a bitch, where you just sort of sit off to the side harassing people, and, like, this is what I recommend you do, but that's just because this is how I like to play Genji, right? Other people might disagree with me. I like to just, like, sit off to the side harassing people, and then when I see an opportunity to kill somebody, I'll dash in, right-click melee, dash away, right? Because, like, Genji can do that. Like, if you see somebody who's low, you can get on that person really quickly and burst them to death relatively easily. Like, it's not hard to dash through somebody, right-click when you're right next to them, melee, and then dash away. That's not actually hard to do. Dragon Blade is not hard to do either. It's mostly about picking your order of targets, because that's the important thing with Dragon Blade is getting kills quickly so you can chain dashes together to kill a bunch of people. So, like, it's actually very, like, anybody, I do believe basically anybody possesses the mechanical skill to use Dragon Blade correctly. The problem is, that's one of the biggest times people are going to panic, right? You've seen it. You've seen the Genji that got play of the game, and then when you look at the replay, his fucking mouse does like this. Right? Like, we've all seen the Genji replay where you're like, oh, that guy is panicking out of control right now. And, like, honestly, it's literally, you think to yourself, I'm going to dash up to Ana, and I'm going to kill Ana, and then I'm going to dash up to Soldier, and then I'm going to kill Soldier, and then I dash up to whoever the fuck and kill whoever the fuck, and then my Dragon Blade is probably over, but I killed 3 people, right? Like, it's very easy mechanically. It's just, like, being calm and picking the order of people to kill, basically. And, you know, you need to know when you're gonna dash, like, there's the timing, the dash, and all that, but it's, honestly, Genji's not hard. Like, if you want to play Genji, you play Genji. He's actually not that difficult to learn. He is easier to learn than a tank. He is easier to learn how to play than, like, Ana. He's easier to learn how to play than, like, Widowmaker, right? Like, Genji, I'd probably rate him, like, you know, if we're going, like, easiest to hardest, I'm gonna put, like, who am I going to put on them? I'm going to put, like, Winston on the pretty easy end, right? Like, highest to high end, we've got... Who am I going to put on the absolute highest? I'm going to put, like, Widowmaker and Ashe really close together at hardest heroes to learn, right? Just because they have the very steep mechanical requirement, but you do also still need to know how to play the game on top of that, right? And then on the very low end, we're going to put, like, Winston and D.Va. Because they have very low mechanical requirements, and they're pretty direct in what they're trying to do, right? Like, their ults and abilities don't really do anything fancy. Yeah, you can do really cool, high-end stuff with them. Like, they have a relatively high skill ceiling still, but, like, their skill floor is pretty low. I'll put Genji, like, pretty in the middle, honestly, in terms of difficulty. Like, pretty middle. Like, I'd put, like, Ana above Genji. I'd probably put McCree above Genji, honestly. Especially because a lot of people, like... I guess McCree isn't very intuitive for people, because a lot of people play McCree wrong. Just flat out, basically. I might even, like... No, I wouldn't put her. I was thinking about it. But, like, there's a lot of heroes I would still put above Genji in terms of difficulty to learn, honestly. In need of Hammond device? Honestly, I don't know shit about Hammond, to be honest with you. He's just like a blank spot for me. I got asked to switch to a shield tank before the game starts. Are shield tanks always better? No, they're just easier to work with. Should I tell them differently? I want to be a team player and switch if needed, but I've been doing really well with him. Any advice on how players can play around him? And should I consider him an off tank, even though I'm completely aware of the space he creates? I advise you to think of Hammond as an off tank. Yeah, he can be a main tank, no doubt. If you watch, like, pro play or just coordinated play, you'll see Hammond get picked as a main tank. Yeah, he can definitely be a main tank. But for just the latter, just like Pugs in competitive, I recommend thinking of Hammond as an off tank. Just because it's not very intuitive how to play around Hammond, basically. Like, this is the thing, it's not that shield tanks are always better, it's just people know what to do with Reinhardt, right? You stand behind the safety square, and the bad men cannot touch you now, right? You see Reinhardt land the Earth Shatter on the bad man, you go and hit the bad man, right? It's very straightforward. Whereas, it's not... And people struggle with this with, like, Winston as well. Winston's also a main tank. He's just not a main tank. He's just not a shield tank, right? So, people don't necessarily know how to play him correctly, and people don't necessarily know how to play with him correctly, so that leads to misunderstandings, because a lot of people will argue with you Winston is not a main tank. Winston is a main tank. It's just he's not a shield tank, like Reinhardt and Orisa. And I personally argue that Orisa isn't a very good main tank, but a lot of people will argue with me on that one, so everybody has different opinions, don't we? Unfortunately, we all have different opinions, as tragic as that is. So yeah, I advise you to think of him as an off-tank, because it basically, like, you're not gonna find people who know how to play around Hammond until you get to, like, Diamond, basically. Because that's also where I would realistically expect people to know how to play a dive comp correctly as well. So that's basically what I'm going with here. Because Hammond, in terms of playstyle, is a lot closer to Winston than he is to, like, Soldier, what the fuck? Reinhardt. I was trying to think shield tank, so somehow that came out S Soldier, yes. It's just, playing with a dive tank is not as intuitive as playing with a shield tank, so you're gonna struggle just, like, in general, basically. I advise you to think of him as an off tank until you get to a higher SR bracket, pretty much. I'm done maining tank. You're a bitch. Just straight up, you're a bitch. I start the game and then I exit the game more sad. I genuinely think I need to switch roles. I dove in deep learning positioning, tech, whatever. Also doesn't help being ridiculed for one mistake by your team over and over again, even though I acknowledge them. Anyway, what do you guys think I should do across all the tanks? I have over 100 hours on them. Yeah, you're just kind of a bitch. Yeah, you know, tanks are one of those roles where you're, like, not really, though. Like, it's one of those roles where if you fuck up, yeah, people are gonna make fun of you, but, like, people are gonna blame the DPS. Like, let's be real. The DPS role is the role that gets blamed far more than any other role, right? I feel like tank is probably the role that gets blamed the least, honestly. People will argue with me about that one, but DPS is undeniably the role that gets blamed the most. So, like, you probably don't have it as bad as you think you do in regards to that. It's just the way that human beings are. We remember negative things a lot more strongly, right? So that's probably what's really happening. You're kind of a bitch, is basically what I've got to say about that one. Like, the state of Reaper now. Like, honestly, I don't care what game you play, really. Like, if one change happens, and then suddenly you feel like you have to drop your character or change roles, you're a sham. Like, basically. Like, if you're a DPS player out there right now, and you're like, fuck, I gotta play Reaper because he's really good right now, you're a sham. You're a sham. Stick to your guns, right? And if when a hero gets buffed, it gets nerfed, if you change off that hero because they got, like, a minor nerf, you're a sham. Like, if I just dropped Bridget suddenly after that first nerf, I would be a sham. Like, part of the game is that things about the game are going to change as time goes by. So if something happens and then suddenly that devastates your entire view of a hero and or role, you're a sham. It's how it is. I play fighter, so obviously I'm going to talk about that now. Like, Cell was bar none the most popular hero in that game for a really long time because he was the best character in that game. Right, like, he was the tippy-toppest of the top tiers. And then he got, like, a pretty minor nerf overall, basically. Like, he did slightly less damage in his combos, and one of his moves didn't kick in damage scaling, and then it did. And that was basically the nerf he got. Slightly lower damage. But he was still good for all the same reasons he was good before. It's just you couldn't kill someone in 2 touches anymore. It might take 3 touches, right? Like, but suddenly, no one's playing Cell. Suddenly, I don't see Cell anywhere anymore. Like, those people are complete shams. Bardock was then very popular after Cell because he was very strong. And that one of the strongest things about him was a setup you could do after his ultimate. They nerfed that setup, but you could still do it. It was just a little harder, basically. And a bunch of people dropped Bardock right then. All of those people are shams. They're complete shams, and they should be ashamed of themselves. Have some fucking dedication to the character that you pick. God damn. Like, if you can't adjust to the game changing, what the fuck? That's part of the game. You gotta learn how to adapt to situations as the game evolves over time. If you just drop something, like a hero or a whole role, after something, and it's like not even a change that happened to your hero or role, then like, what the fuck, dude? Like, come on. Come on. Come on. Have some fucking dedication. What way should I use Torb turret? I have 20 hours on Torb and trying to get better with him, but I don't know how I should use his turret. I usually use his turret to help me finish off enemies, or use it as an alarm if the enemy's close to me. I mean, you know, you want to set it in an area that's basically going to be obnoxious for people, and like, I'm not good enough at Hammer Lord Torbjorn to tell you where all the good turret places are, but like, you're looking for really obnoxious places for the enemy team. It's very easy on defense, because if you put it in a place where they can't really break it before they commit to a fight, then suddenly there's this thing that's just going to be doing free damage to them as soon as a fight engages, right? Like, that's a very obnoxious aspect of Torbjorn. It's a lot harder to do that if you're attacking, obviously, but you're going to be it's harder to play Torbjorn in attacking general, so, you know, right? But you're basically looking for obnoxious positions where if they pick a fight with you, they'll have, like, it's difficult or hard or impossible for them to break the turret before the fight starts. Then the fight starts, and they're basically going to be getting fucked up by it by the whole time. And I mean, yeah, you can use it to harass people as well. You throw it onto just, like, annoying positions that cover a wide area, and then when they come out into it, they have to respect that, so they can't just openly traverse that area. You know, it has the zoning aspect to it, obviously, as well. But, like, really, the annoying thing is, like, the turret's somewhere you can't really break it, so you know you just have to deal with it once the fight starts. I know that's why I hate playing against Torbjorn anyway. I'm fairly not understanding Orissa's halt. I'm fairly new to the game, so I'm learning the Orissa is my main at this point. I've done really well for it, but I'm using halt effectively, or I think so. I've been sort of using it sort of to get enemies out of hiding spots, like when they're reloading or whatnot. I just shoot it a little to the side so it draws them out, and then I can shoot them. I also use it as sort of to group them together so it's easier for everyone to aim at them. Other than that, I'm having a hard time finding use for it. I mean, those are already two of the bigger reasons to use it. Just an efficiency thing with Orissa's halt is that you want to aim it off the ground, because most people, especially when they're learning to play Orissa, will just fire it basically like they're aiming, and then they'll just fire it, right? You actually want to adjust your aim so you fire it a little bit off the ground, and the reason for that is probably easier to illustrate if I draw. Because if we've got Badman A standing here, right? Oh no, this is Badman A, so if you halt, like, right here, then you'll yank them forward, yeah, but then they're slowed, but then they immediately start moving around. However, if you halt Badman A like so, where you yank them off the ground, they have to fall to the ground again before they actually regain control of their hero. So, if you yank them off the ground, and it's like Anna, she goes voomp, voomp, and then she's allowed to start moving around again. So it just elongates the crowd control effect, basically, if you aim it off the ground rather than directly at the ground. So try and do that if possible. Yeah, you'll yank them out of cover, you'll yank them in together in a big group so it's easy to hit, and people can throw, like, AoEs at them, stuff like that. You know, that's all great. That's all a good reason to use halt. Thought I heard somebody shouting, but I think I'm just going insane. So, hearing voices is one of those things, right? So, yeah, pulling people out of hiding, pulling them together for people to hit them, that's all great. The only other reason to really use it, well, there's two other reasons. Pull them into pits, but that, you know, fairly self-explanatory, right? You can yank somebody into a pit, that's always going to be a good time. But the other reason is to, like, peel for people. Like, if you see Genji dash up to somebody, especially if he's going to use Dragon Blade, if you then just throw it, like, behind him, it'll yank him off the person he's trying to kill, and then he has to actually, like, he's, like, slowed, and you yanked him away, so it gives the person some breathing room. You see Reapers running after somebody, you throw it behind him and yank him off the person, and that he's pulled away, he's slowed, gives the person some breathing room. So those are basically the other reasons to use it. So try and aim it off the ground, try and use it for peel for people and pull them off the edges. Other than that, use it as currently are, basically. OTPs and why you shouldn't be angry they won't switch. Let's learn some basic math. This is very long for basic math, isn't it? Is there a TLDR? No. Goodbye. Hey, I have a question. How fast does MMR increase? It basically depends how many games in a row you're gonna win, pretty much. Like, the more often you win, and the more convincingly you win, because it factors in, like, personal stats as well as, like, win rate and all that. So, like, if you win a lot, and you win, like, you've got, like, really good stats in the game, compared to, like, your team, the average SR for that hero, then your MMR will go up faster as well as your SR, and that's kind of, like, no one knows exactly. We don't know the intricacies of how their system works, but, like, we can guess, basically. Pretty much, like, if you win a lot, it's going to scale up faster, whereas if you only win, like, an average amount of the time, it's going to basically move up in time with your SR. But if you win a lot, it might suddenly start accelerating to get you up there. This is why Smurfs will start getting accelerated up towards the upper end. And, you know, if you got boosted, you might suddenly see that person decelerate towards the bottom. Why do DPS seem to get blamed for literally everything? It's very simple. It's very simple why DPS get blamed. Because their teammates go, the enemy team isn't dead. We're dead, but the enemy team isn't dead. You know how you kill someone? You do damage to them. Who is the person on our team that does the most damage? It's the DPS. If the enemy team are alive, the DPS must not be doing enough damage to kill them. So there's that. That's 90% of it. The other 10% is people not understanding what their heroes do. Because it's very common to see a Zarya, a D.Va, a Zenyatta, a Moira have, like, bronze or silver damage. And, like, probably pretty decent. Like, I see this shit all the time. Moira's like, I've got golden limbs. So the DPS are fucking trash. Moira, everything you do is AoE. You only have to do 1 damage to get an elimination. Of course you have gold eliminations. Or they'll be like, well, I'm playing a support, and I have gold eliminations and or bronze, silver, or gold damage, so obviously the DPS are bad, but, like, you're playing Zenyatta. So, I'm a support. What do you spend 90% of your time doing? Left-clicking on bad men. So, you do damage most of the time. Do you have to stop doing damage to heal people? If I use Transcendence. Alright, what about the rest of the time? Well, no. So you do damage then? Yeah, but I'm a support, so I shouldn't have the medal. Well, see, Zenyatta, it seems like your hero revolves a lot around doing damage, doesn't it? Don't you have an ability that makes people do more damage, Zenyatta? Yeah, so they should have it as well. Are you putting on people that are getting focused, or people you are focusing? I'm a support, I shouldn't have the medal. And that's basically how it goes, right? Like, it's very easy for Zenyatta, Moira, Zarya, D.Va, Reinhardt. It's all very easy for these people to have the medals. But, like, I'm not playing the DPS role, so I should clearly have none of these medals. And if I do, the DPS are bad. And that's it. That's it. That's literally the whole reason. A tip I learned from Jane that has improved my play dramatically. I was watching one of Jane's VoD reviews of a Diamond Genji when he said something along the lines of the reason he was in Diamond was because he wasn't working with a team. We hear that all the time, but he went in-depth with his explanation. He said that instead of looking for someone to kill as a DPS tank, you should look for a teammate who needs your help. All of the times whenever you get enemies low then die, could have been kills had you been helping a teammate. I don't know why I just had a stroke, but I did. Just pick someone on your team and help them do what they're trying to do. A 2v1 is a lot more in your favor than a 1v1. Yeah, like if you're playing like Winston, any diver or any flanker, and you see any other diver or any other flanker trying to kill somebody, go help them kill that guy. It's a lot easier for a Tracer to kill someone if there's a Winston there also killing the person, right? It's just simple math in kind of that way, isn't it? So yeah, all true stuff. Everything you need to know. Too long. There's a video, though, so I guess we'll look at what the video's called, so you can look it up if you want. Oh. There you go. OW_SVB. Goat simplified. Everything you need to know. There you go. That's the one. Major losing streak. How I should break a losing streak. You just kind of have to deal with it, my man. Like, I'm really tired of answering that question. Like, it's something we all have to deal with. You just kind of have to deal with it until it stops. You know, you can do all this, you know, there's all the other things. Take a break, get some water, take a walk, you know, all that hippie shit. But, like, really, what you gotta do is you gotta muscle through it until you start winning again. And usually, like, you'll get a game. Because, like, what happens is you start getting into the mentality of expecting to lose, and then it just becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Once you win a game or two, you get it back, pretty much. Main tank or off tank? Hey, folks, long time lurker, Thing is, we split main tank and off tank duties depending on the comp. He'll take Ryan Hammond, I'll take Winston Orisa, he'll take Hog, I'll take Zarya Diva. We're fairly serious about finally improving, so my question is, should we both pick a role? Do you think focusing on main tank, off tank will allow us to increase synergy, gain a deeper understanding of the role? Yes, because they both play very differently. I'm a much better main tank than I am an off tank. I'm universally better at the main tanks than the off tanks. Like, they're separate skills. Yeah, they're both tanks, but what main tanks and off tanks do are so dramatically different from each other that, like, you're better off focusing on one side of it if you can. If you don't really want to play tank and you just do it, like, you get filled into tank, then, you know, you're not going to worry about the intricacies so much. But, like, if you're serious about being a tank one way or the other, I think it's better to focus on one side of it than the other. Just because, like, Reinhardt plays nothing like Zarya, you know? Nothing like Roadhog, all that. Like, you're better off focusing on one side, in my opinion. If you're, like, really serious about, like, being a tank. So, you know... And ideally, you can play both. Like, I can play both. I can play off-tank. I know how to play Diva. She's the off-tank I'm most comfortable playing, so, like, I'll pick Diva if I have to. But I'm so much more confident playing the main tanks. Except Hammond, but we've talked about that already. How can I practice aiming against fast-moving targets, especially Genji? You have to play against people. You have to play a lot and miss a lot. But eventually you'll learn how to click on that bad man. And you'll click on that bad man real good. Hammond guide on how to play with Hammond. Oh! Reaper and Goats. With the new Reaper buffs, which weren't meant to add more counterplay against Goats. Does anyone think it could have the opposite effect? No. Very simple. No. I don't think so. So there you go. So that's a little over an hour. Good job, team. So thank you very much for watching. If you did, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'm more than happy to answer. If you haven't already, you can join our Discord and ask questions more directly and have a conversation about them, or just shitpost with us. If you enjoyed the video and somehow managed to make it all the way to the end of this train wreck, then please like the video and subscribe for other videos of middling quality in the future. God, can't even do the outro correctly. God damn. And I hope you found the video helpful.